Nintendo, Nintendo, Nintendo. I know your whole plan. I know all the secrets. How and why, you ask? Well, why don't you ask my uncle, Jerry from accounting? Yup, you have a mole. Anyway, with that super cringy but also very hilarious intro out of the way, today we're going to be talking about the future of the Pokemon games and honestly a little bit about the Switch too. A lot of this is going to be speculations because they still haven't given us any news, but I'm going to be covering everything from Legends ZA to the Switch 2 to even Gen 10. Game Freak is doing something a little bit weird lately. They're taking a gap year for the Pokemon series, and overall, I think it's the correct move. I mean, the last few years, people have been saying they would enjoy the games more if they just let them bake in the oven a little longer. I mean, the glitches on some of these game releases are just insane. In the past, gap years were pretty normal for Pokemon. I mean, stretching all the way back to Red, Blue, and Yellow, there have been little gaps in the main series. But at this point, the last gap year we had like this was like Oraz to Sun and Moon, I believe. And that makes me and a couple others think that they got something big cooking right now. Starting off with Pokemon Legends ZA. At the time of writing this, literally the only info we have is that it's coming out in 2025. I honestly think it's going to be a Q4 release, meaning I'm expecting it to drop sometime in the range of October to December. The thing people seem to love to talk about when it comes to these games are the starters, so here's my take. There's a few options of what the starters are going to be, and first and foremost, it's not going to be any of the Gen 9 starters because they're too new. It's not going to be Gen 1 through 3 because they already have Megas, meaning they'll probably still be in the game somewhere. And it's not going to be Oshawott, Cyndaquil, or Rowlet because they were the starters of Legends Arceus, and that would just feel redundant. First up, we got the grass options, and that leaves us with Chikorita, Turtwig, Snivy, or Grookey. And I think the one making the most sense would be Serperior, because it's based on royalty, which doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in the French-based region, but I think it's the best option out of all the grass line starters. When it comes to water, we can use the same ideas as last time to leave us with Totodile, Piplup, Popplio, and Inteleon. I think it's pretty obvious that it's going to be Empoleon for very similar reasons to Serperior. It has a very French-themed design with its name being extremely close to Napoleon, as in Napoleon Bonaparte, the French general. On top of that, its design shares his little frilly collar bits. Kinda sorta, it's a little bit of a stretch, but if other people can say it, so can I. Finally, that leaves the fire options as Chimchar, Tepig, Litten, or Scorbunny. Assuming they also wouldn't want overlapping regions, if my other ideas are correct, then we're left with either Litten or Scorbunny. I don't think there's much of a case for either in all honesty. I've heard some people argue that France likes soccer and because Cinderace is a soccer player, boom, that's the obvious option. Honestly, I'm gonna say Cinderace, but the only reason why is because I don't like Incineroar. It's annoying and he smells bad, and that leads me to not wanting him to have any more love, any more forms, nothing else. VGC is annoying as is. So hear me out. I know I just laid all that out, but what if none of that is actually what I think? I don't know if anyone noticed, but I didn't mention the original Gen 6 starters not even once. Meaning I technically didn't rule them out, and that was on purpose. Because I actually think we're going to get the normal Gen 6 starters in this game. And I know it would be different from what they did in Legends Arceus, but what if instead of new forms of starter Pokemon, we got new Megas for the original Gen 6 starters? Don't get me wrong, they would have to say something about how the stones went missing over the years and the construction plans and this and that, but I think it could be a very cool way to freshen up that set of starters. I mean, who really cares about them since they took away Ash Greninja? Speaking of Megas, I think this is Game Freak's new way of testing them to bring them back into the main series of Pokemon. I've heard people say things like they forgot about Megas and abandoned them, but I don't think those points are true. If so, why would they include them in things like Pokemon Go and Mystery Dungeon remakes? I know the comment section is going to be full of people telling me that they're just Legend games and they aren't core series games, but that shouldn't undersell their impact. Just for example, Legends Arceus gave us a ton of new Pokemon that really shook up the regular formula. With evolutions and new forms to already existing Pokemon, as well as things like Enamorus, hell, they made Ursaluna have such a big impact, they gave it not one, but a second form in the Scarlet and Violet DLC. It's safe to say that Game Freak is willing to use the Legends game to shake up the typical Pokemon formula. And honestly, pretty soon, I think I'll get my questions answered. Because I don't think they would make new Megas and not put them in the core series game. Just think about it, why would they put all that effort in to design new versions of old Pokemon just to put them in a side game and that's it? So the moment I finally see Mega Flygon or Mega Yanmega, I know for sure they're coming back to the main series. If we don't see any new Megas, we probably are not getting them back in the main series, but a man can hope, okay? Even if they don't come back, I'm just as excited to see updated textures and new gen representation for some of my favorite megas, like Mega Mawile or Mega Beedrill. The next topic I'm going to cover is the Switch 2. I've heard a lot about it in the last year, and I think it's going to be really important in relation to Pokemon's future. Maybe not as big as the leap to 3D or even the leap from the 3DS to the Switch, but a big step nonetheless. Nintendo even kind of teased it a few months back with a tweet referencing the Nintendo Switch successor. Someone also brought up it would be announced by the end of the current year, meaning it'll probably drop somewhere in the line of February to November in 2025. I know that's kind of a big gap, 9 months to be exact, but the reason why I think this will be the release window is actually for a few reasons. Looking at the dates of their most recent consoles, the 3DS and Switch released in February and March respectively, and November was the month for the DS, Wii, and Wii U, so it's safe to say they really like November for releases as well. I really don't think they would plan on announcing it in 2024 and releasing it in 2026. That feels like way too long of a wait, and it's safe to say they won't need much hype for it, considering we're already talking about and speculating about the console. That leads into my next point. I'm pretty confident in the idea that one of the reasons we have a gap year is so it makes sense that Gen 10 will be on the Switch 2. That way it could drop with a new console and maybe even a special edition without it being too obvious. Gen 10 is going to be released in Q4 2026. I can almost guarantee that. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, the original Japanese versions of Red and Green came out in February of 1996, meaning 2026 would be the 30th year anniversary. And what would be bigger than dropping your 10th generation of Pokemon on a new console with fan favorite features like Mega Evolution coming back? Honestly, if they wanted to, I'm sure we'd all be welcome to the idea of following Pokemon coming back, as long as you did it better than you did it in the recent games. BDSP and Sword and Shield were kind of a joke for it. At the end of the day, everyone from Nintendo to Game Freak to all of us honestly know that whatever the Pokemon company shits out, we will buy it. The recent sales of Scarlet and Violet show that's true with how many people seem to hate those games but yet bought them anyway because they wanted to see all the new Pokemon. Here's to hoping that Pokemon Gen 10 is the thing that really brings back that old Pokemon spark for a lot of people, me and you included.